In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the good He has brought to us, and we also thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guiding us to Islam. As we all know, recently there's been a lot of racial abuse and Islamophobia being taking place here in London City. Now today we want to discuss with one of the abusers in regards to the recent incidents and find out why these such cases are taking place, why Islamophobia is on a rise. We also want to address this individual and make him understand about the teachings of Islam. What does Islam represent? What does Islam say about racism and so forth? Also, what is really shocking to us as a Muslim myself, to see a fellow black person act towards a fellow human being in this way, especially when we know the black community has suffered so many racism throughout the decades. Also, we wanted to give this individual today, the abuser, the opportunity to meet with another Muslim and discuss about Islam, to learn about the religion of Islam and learn what Islam stands for and what Islam represents in totality. Islam is a religion what is colorblind, and Islam is a religion what goes against any kind of racial abuse or discrimination in any way, shape or form. Whether it comes from a black person or a white person, it doesn't matter. Islam is totally against that. And this is why we wanted to take the opportunity today to interview you and discuss with you more about Islam and to understand why you reacted in this way, why your behavior was like this, so we can understand why Islamophobia in totality is on a rise. Before we get into the main points of this interview and before we address you with certain questions, we would like the viewers to have a little feel to know a little bit about you. So can you please tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get a gist of where exactly you are coming from?
My name's Kashif Samuels. I'm 25 years old. I'm a father, a brother and a son. I work as a chef. And I have to admit, the last probably year or so, I've gone through quite a bit in my personal life. That doesn't excuse my behaviour, but it's just, I guess it has been a hard year. I've come to a lot of realisations on a lot of things. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about myself.
Okay, so Mr. Samuels, before we get into the core of the interview, what we would like to do is first show a clip of what recently took place on the bus. So for many of the viewers, you may not understand why we're actually interviewed today, so they can get a drift of what exactly took place that day on the public transport.
Get you on the same page as Big Dave, eh? Yeah? Your daughter lost my and your wife and your sister, all of them, all the Turkish girls love my What? Do something about it! You're a name. Your wife loves this. I put it in her mouth every night while you're working. Yeah, your kids love black. Yeah, oh my leg, oh. Talking a different language. No one can understand you. No one knows what you're saying. Nobody knows. Go back to Turkey and talk that. Oh no, you can't. Blown up in Turkey. That's why you're here, mate. That's why you're here. Free benefits in a walker. Your walker's gonna go flying when the bus stops, mate. Yeah? We're in Tottenham now. Get off now, mate. Police! You wanted to call police! No, you wanted to call police! Call police, you're gonna see a bad man! Yeah, or what? Or what? Put your hand on me, give me an excuse. Put your hand on me, man! Put your hand on me! Put your hand on me! Put your hand on me! Put your hand on me, bruv! Put your hand on me, move it! Move it! Move it, man! What? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Nothing! You're idiot! Hmm? Yeah, talk English. Talk English. Sorry about that, folks. But all another reason just to bomb you, kid. Yeah? Close the borders. Get all these scumbags, bro. Scumbags. Why are you here? Why don't you go back to Turkey? back to Turkey because you can't, bro. You can't. You're probably wanting for kids. Probably
I think
wanting
that's
for
enough though.
kids. Yeah, you like little boys.
Yeah, that's cool, that's cool.
Oh, wait, not Dawson, lad, man. Dawson.
I want to watch it.
What's he? Back there, get up again, I'll slap the
Thank you.
stand up again, stand up again, stand up again.
Now, after you watching Black, the clip of what happened on the bus, how do you feel about it?
I feel sorry and disgusted in myself. Words can't describe how sorry I am to that gentleman and sorry to everyone that had to witness that.
Me, myself, watching the way you were behaving on that bus, words can't really describe what goes through my mind, how I feel about you and how you were behaving that day in particular. But what I really would like to ask you, what was going through your mind to make you act like that way towards this disabled individual? What was going through your mind that day? Why were you behaving in such a disturbing and a heartless manner?
I was angry. I've been angry for a long time about a lot of different things. Doesn't excuse it. Honestly, I don't think anything was really going through my mind. I obviously wasn't thinking, because that's not the person who I am. That's not the person who I want to be.
You know, one of the worst things for me about this attack and this incident is that the individual that you were abusing that day, he's disabled. Me and you both know that he was no harm to you in no way, shape or form. There's nothing he could personally done to you, because you could see he had a Zimmer frame. He was disabled. Now, even him being disabled, weren't something going through your mind to make you think like, why would I act towards a disabled person this way? Why would you, as a human being, a fellow human being, act towards someone with a disability in that way?
Things were said before the video started that did offend me. Again, that doesn't excuse my behaviour, but the anger inside of me just came out and I wanted to offend him in every way possible. Again, before the filming started, there were things said and actions that he did take that did put to the back of my mind. I wasn't seeing an old, frail man. I was seeing someone who in my mind had threatened and violated my safety and insulted me. And my reaction to that was to insult him in the best way possible, in not the best way possible, but in the most hurtful way possible.
But even, you know, when we go back to the incident what happened on the bus, even it got to a stage whereby I even noticed that you said, like, go on, like you were actually, you seemed like you were ready to actually attack the individual. You were ready to actually put your hands on him.
Again, the only thing I can say in response to that is that was in response to his original threats towards me. Before I'd abused him in any way, before I'd threatened him, before I'd said much to him, the threats that were made towards me, I think with my upbringing and the lifestyle I've lived up until only 2-3 years ago, I react in a certain way in certain situations, and it goes off of the thing of, in certain situations, I'm not going to see a person, I'm not going to see what's stopping me. I'm just, once I see red and once I've seen red, I'm not, all of the things that should stop me from doing that, all of the things that I should look at and go, well, this is an old, frail man, like, with a Zimmer frame. Like, my mother's disabled. My mother uses a walking stick in a wheelchair. Like, I have to push my mother about at times if my father can't do it. Like, so I can only say that it was through anger and not thinking, not being in the right headspace and not thinking at all. Because if I had a thought, I could have been angry and removed myself from the situation. There's a lot of things I could have said to him that would have offended him in the way that he offended me. None of those things were necessary. None of the things I said were necessary or in any way excusable. And I can only just offer my apologies to the gentleman himself, his family, and everyone that I offended.
When I saw the way you were acting on the bus, me personally, my emotions were flying all over the place. Me as an individual, you know, even before I came to Islam, I would consider myself as a, you know, maybe an aggressive individual to a certain degree, but I've never ever, you know, been put in a position where I've taken advantage of someone, especially with a disability. And when I saw this, I was disgusted. Inside, I was disgusted. Inside and out, I was really disgusted and disappointed that someone would take advantage of someone else in that way. Now, the question I want to ask you, how long after that situation took place did you realize that what you done was wrong?
Instantaneously. As soon as I stepped off that bus, I knew what I'd done was wrong. I wouldn't even go back out afterwards. I didn't do what I came to do that day. I just left and took my daughter home, mainly for her safety. And was disgusted by it for days afterwards. It was on my mind. I knew what I had done, and I knew the effect that it would have had on that man, and I was disgusted and upset with myself.
Another thing I would like to understand, was there a build-up towards this type of anger and, you know, hatred inside of you? Because, you know, they say, there's a famous statement, which a lot of people say, that when someone's angry, what's in their heart comes out. So we'd like to know, is something going on in your life? Is something, I don't know, are you going through something? What would make you, what is it had made this build up inside for you to react in such a, you know, a disgusting and heartless way to any individual? Put aside that the person is disabled, but to have that kind of hatred to anyone, is something going on behind the scenes that we the viewers do not know about?
There's a lot of things going on in my life, and not a lot of good things going on in my life for a long time now. And my personal life, my relationship with my daughter's mum has been very hard and a struggle for a number of reasons. One of them reasons being my anger issues, definitely, and being the way that I do react on people and go over the top. My mum's been ill since I can remember, and I think that's something that I've always kind of had to hold it down for, and something I've always had to swallow back and just not think about. And since my mum first turned ill when I was a kid, I think that when I was a kid in school, that was probably the turning point in my behaviour, where I went from just a misbehaved child to just being angry all the time. Like, I had a great upbringing. My parents done the best with what they had. But at the same time, it wasn't the greatest upbringing. Like, but nothing to do with my parents or my home life. Just more to do with my social life, I guess. My school life has always been hard. I was bullied for about 5 years in school, where even the teachers wouldn't really stop it. It got to the point where police officers had to come to school and let me know that as a person I have the right to defend myself, because I was told I'm not allowed to fight back. I'm not allowed to, if somebody hits me, I have to go and tell the teacher. If somebody attacks me or says something I don't like, I have to go and tell the teacher. I think that was a big turning point in my life, where after that conversation with the police officer, who pulled me out of a lesson to tell me that as a person I have the right to defend myself, I guess maybe I took that too far and decided anytime anyone crosses the line that I deem necessary, steps over the line that I've set, I'm gonna step all over their line, and I'm gonna cross every boundary that imaginable. And that's something that I really need to change, and something I really need to address, because it's not doing me any good. I've lost jobs because of my anger. I've lost out on course opportunities. I've been on courses that I thought were about to change my life and were going to put me in the direction I always wanted to go. Lost out on it because of my anger.
One of the backlashes in regards to racism and Islamophobia and abusing people in the public is that, from my personal point of view, it affects especially the women in the community a lot more, because now, due to your actions and due to the previous lady who was abusing the pregnant Muslim lady on the bus, many women in the community are now even scared to come out of her house. I read a statement from the previous victim, and she said that now she is frightened, she is scared to come out of her house because she doesn't know how people in this society, in this country, are going to react towards her. How do you as an individual feel about that?
It disgusts me. It disgusts me that I played a part in that. It disgusts me that the society we live in has made people feel like that. Not just my actions, but actions before me, and actions that will probably come again after me. I hope not, but the society we live in is one of such, and I can only apologise, and that it hurts me on my stomach to think that women and children are afraid to come out of their house and afraid to walk the streets of London because of my actions, that I've perpetuated that image of London as that type of society, which a lot of it isn't.
Why do you think Islamophobia is on the rise? Because it's clear that, and it's evident that these last two recent events have come to light. But to be honest with you, many incidents have come forward, but because of maybe no one had a video phone at that time to record it, it hasn't had the same publicity as your case and the previous lady. So I'd like to ask you, why do you think Islamophobia is on a rise?
I think definitely the media in this country have a lot to answer for that. The media outlets tend to put out this message that Muslims are evil, Muslims, anyone wearing a headscarf is hiding something. And that's been for a number of years, for most of my life, I guess, for probably half of my life, since and before 9/11. That's the image that has been put out of Muslims as a whole. And that's something that before this isn't something I'm saying now in an attempt to gain remorse or to have people feel sorry for me or to get a shorter sentence in court. This is how I felt before this. Like, I don't agree with it. I don't think I've ever really had an issue with a Muslim person in my life. And as you can tell, I got anger issues. I've had problems with many people throughout my times, and never once really as a Muslim person really tried to do me harm. I've never seen a Muslim person strapping themselves up with a bomb or arming themselves to go out and hurt people. I've only experienced love from the people. And I think that the media definitely do have a lot to answer for why people in this country, it warps your mind at the end of the day. You're pushed. It's not just in the newspapers, it's not just on the news channels, it's everywhere, and it's almost a term called dog whistle politics that they've used against black people for a long time. And they'll say something, a dog whistle, you blow a dog whistle, only the dog hears it. Everyone else is unaware it's happening. And they use that a lot in the media, where they'll say something that only the person that is aimed to offend is going to understand what they're actually saying and who they're offending. And not just that, but then that on top of the constant perpetuating the thing of Muslims are terrorists, Muslims are this, Muslims are that. That's what happens. And in a way, I guess, my actions and other people's actions give them the perfect blanket to throw over themselves and say, well, we're not Islamophobic. We brought these Islamophobic people, these racist Islamophobes to light. We're the one who put it in the media and printed it. And then next month, or I'll give it a couple of months, and they'll be right back to printing the same stuff about accusing schoolgirls of going over to be jihadi wives or whatever it is they're saying. Because to be honest, a lot of it, I do try to not pay a lot of attention to it, because I know that it's the message that they want you to have in your head isn't usually the message that's best for you or best for anyone. Like the people in power only really have their best interests at heart, like their own best interests at heart. They don't have the general public's interests at heart, and it's perpetuating that agenda in order to justify their own actions.
Imagine we could, action replay your whole incident, but you were, instead of you being the abuser, you were a passenger on the bus. If you saw someone else going through the same abuse that you gave to that old man, what would you do?
If I'd have managed to keep my rag together and not attack the person, I think I would have tried to educate them and tell them that you don't treat Muslim people like that, and that especially if it was a black man as well doing that, I would have told you can't. At the end of the day, like the influx of Muslims into the inner cities of London is caused by the actions of this country's governments and past governments, and that influx itself has actually taken the heat off people of colour, myself, my parents, my old generations before me. Like, black people ain't the ones getting pulled over and stopped and searched and discriminated against. They still do, but not as much since your 9/11s and since this terrorism. And now and almost in a way that the Muslims have actually taken the heat off of a lot of other races that were discriminated against and that were targeted by police and by general members of the public.
Another thing I noticed when I was watching your video online, you said something when you got off the bus, and I found it rather strange. You said, everyone vote UKIP. I'd just like to understand, what was your motive behind you saying that?
That's a sarcastic comment that I've been saying since the election, actually, since the general election. I think that's a disgusting party that has been, it's almost a debranding of the BNP and a rebranding of it into something that can be a mainstream party, that can be seen as a mainstream party. And I don't agree with their values and views, and I consider them a joke, personally. Again, that was said out of anger to offend the person, and I can only regret that. A lot of people won't understand and will be confused by the statements I'm making now, considering it's only a week later. Like, how can his views have changed so dramatically, people will be saying. And it's not that my views have changed dramatically, it's that I genuinely didn't hold the views that I expressed on that bus. That was my disgusting attempt to offend someone in every way possible.
Now, Islam is a religion what is colourblind, and we don't discriminate against anyone, whether their race, their culture, or their background. But I'm a black Muslim, it's clear. But what I find really disturbing to see another black person, racially abusing someone, when me, myself, I've suffered racism in the past. And I know many other black people have suffered racism, and we don't need to get into all the slavery and etc. But I just find it disturbing that someone who I believe, maybe, I don't know, but I know many black people have suffered racism, and to see another black person saying to another individual racist comments, I find it really, really disturbing, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to get inside your head to figure out what would make you, as a black person, come out and say such disgusting racist words to a fellow individual.
Again, I can only say that I was very angry at the time, and all I had on my mind was insulting that person in the harshest and most vicious way possible. And I guess the racial comments, I guess, come from being a victim of racial abuse myself. I know how painful that can be. I know how that can affect you from feeling like you don't belong in this country, when a lot of the times you probably don't have a choice on why you're here. It probably wasn't your choice to come here in the first place. I think a lot of it stems from that, from being someone as a victim of racial abuse, and someone knowing that how much it hurts, as crazy as it may seem. I knew that saying those things would offend that person to the utmost, and I can only apologise for that, looking back on it, and apologise directly to him.
When you hear the word Islam, or when you hear the word Muslim, what is the first thing that comes to your mind in regards to, especially in regards to race and stuff like that? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear these words?
The first thing that comes to my mind is, funnily enough, like friend and love. I've had many Muslim friends. There's many Muslims out there that I can genuinely say I love from the bottom of my heart. And even more reason why my behaviour, my language, my actions disgust me, because I didn't show that Muslim gentleman the same respect and love that any Muslim I've ever interacted has showed me.
I think you kind of misunderstood my question. Basically, what I was trying to ask you is, when you hear the name Muslim or you hear the name Islam, what's the first colour or race comes to your mind?
Black.
And why is this?
Because I know my history. I know that my ancestors were Muslim. I know that Islam is, I believe, it's actually been proven to be the oldest religion on the planet. And it stems from Africa. And I'm aware of that. And again, more reason for me to be disgusted by my actions. That I'm not a stupid person. I wouldn't describe myself as an intellectual person, but I'm smart. I read, and I don't just read what's shoved in front of me. I do research. My parents do a lot of research into history. That's probably one of the main things that we'll do in our free time, is look up history, and not just Black history, but history of the world.
I respect your opinion, I respect the answer that you came with, but some of the information that you did put across is not exactly accurate. But off the camera we can get into more detail in regards to Islam and how Islam branched off and so on and so forth.
I'd appreciate that.
Another thing I would like to ask you is that, since this attack has taken place, how has your life been like? Because, you know,
it's not nice.
We can say that sometimes 5 minutes of aggression can potentially ruin an individual's life. How has your life been like since the day of that attack up until this day of this interview? How has your life been like?
It's not been nice at all. It's been stressful. It's been full of sorrow and remorse mostly. But I think it's with the backlash that's coming at me from the Turkish and the Muslim community, and not just them, but from the community in general. People aren't happy with what I said. People are angry. And I'm having to pay the price for that. I've had to remove myself from the area where I live. I haven't seen my daughter, and it's looking like I won't see my daughter maybe ever again. These are repercussions of my actions. I have to stand up and take responsibility for what I did as a man. I have to accept these repercussions.
You know, since the day of the attack, how has your relationship with your parents been since then? What has your family had to say about this situation?
They're not happy with me. They're not happy with me at all. Not only have I disappointed them and portrayed myself as a person who isn't the person they raised, but I've put them and everyone I love in danger.
Now, the Turkish uncle, and the reason why I say uncle, because in Islam, he is my uncle. Even though I've never met him before, I've never seen him before, I don't know what he looks like, but he's my uncle, he's my brother in Islam. This is why I refer to him in this way. If he was watching this interview now, he was sitting down watching this interview now, what would you like to say to him?
I'm sorry. From the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry for my actions towards you, all of them, for all of the words, all of the disgusting language I used to talk about your family in that manner, to talk about you in that manner and your religion in that manner. I apologise from the bottom of my heart, and I understand that people can't just, apologies are just a word, sorry is just a few letters. I just hope that my future actions can show that's not the person who I am, and that that's not how I was raised, that's not my views on life or on the world or on Islam. But most importantly, that I am sorry, and that anything I could do to, it's not something that can be rectified, but anything I could do to try and put things right and to try and show my remorse and sorrow, I would be willing to do. There's no words to describe how sorry I am for my actions towards him.
Samuels, me personally, I would like to advise you and say that it's evident due to your actions and due to what you've told us in the interview that you have a history of anger management, an issue of anger problem, and you should try your best, to try and get some help, because, this behaviour and treating people like that is completely unacceptable. And even though, like you said, you might have had some abuse online and whatnot, we don't excuse that. We don't make excuses for why people may be aggressive and angry towards you because of the way you treated that individual. Like you said, you have a mother. I believe if anyone, treated your mother in that way, you would be very angry and upset.
Of course, and I completely understand the anger.
And sometimes at the start of emotions, people say things that they don't mean. So there might be people in the Muslim community who might have said things that, what doesn't go against what doesn't go along the lines of the teaching of Islam. But we know from the teaching of Islam, Islam is a merciful religion. There's many things what happened to our Prophet, peace be upon him, were 10 times worse than what you've done. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, forgave individuals. So we want to advise you on behalf of the Muslim community to try and seek some help, because this kind of behavior to anyone, not just to the, to our uncle that we're referring to today, is completely unacceptable. And no one doesn't deserve to be treated in that way. And there's no internal excuse for someone to be treated in this way. Also, we'd like to thank you for coming on here and being honest and being open in regards to, what happened that day. And I hope you sitting with another Muslim can make you realize that we Muslims are not like the way you are portraying us to be in the video, or the anger that you had towards us. You can see that we're clearly not like that. Me and you come from a similar background, even the way you speak, your whole persona, the way you are, we're very much similar. But you can see that from me and maybe other people that you've seen me come here with today, that the religion of Islam has changed us and, made us live a life with, how can I say, sakina? It means like have tranquility, to have peace within. So we advise you first and foremost to try your best to try and get some help, because like I said, this behavior first and foremost is completely unacceptable. And secondly, we invite you to look into the religion of Islam, look at the teachings of Islam, not to take Islam for the media. And remember on the end note that the religion Islam, from our perspective, is perfect, but the Muslim is not. And I'd like to, again say thank you for coming on here today and being completely honest with us.
Thank you for having me, and I am seeking help, and I will continue to seek help, because my anger is and has been an issue, and it's something that I need to address for my own sake and for the sake of others, the people around me, the general public. I can't behave like this. I can't continue like this. And I just hope that, as I said, my future actions can show me as the man that I thought I was, and the man that, but more importantly, the man that I know I can be. And thank you again for having me.